We have to standardize child rearing. We have to standardize AI. Uh, we have to be unified so that we can handle global warming
Mm.
and nuclear weapons. We need to get rid of nuclear weapons. But in order to do that, we have to be unified as a country, and the world has to be unified.
Mm. That's interesting, Joe. I think the standardized child rearing is interesting because I'll say this from personal experience. So my wife has multiple sclerosis, and it's pretty severe. We have a son who's 10 years old, and she's not in any immediate danger or anything, but pretty disabled from it and in pretty bad shape. So I take care of her, but I also do most of the child rearing because just her limitations just make it hard. And I'll say I work as well, obviously. So I wouldn't say I'm a single parent, but in some ways, and I frankly don't think it's possible to effectively raise a child and also work a full-time job. And that's not to knock anybody that's doing it. It's not to say, I'm sure people find a way, kill themselves, find a way to do it, but it's not the ideal way for sure. To the point you're saying, and maybe that's a controversial statement, maybe it's not, but just from my experience, I find it very difficult to work a career and also effectively raise a child. You can raise a child, but to effectively raise a child is very, very hard. So I think what you're getting at is kind of that inconvenient truth maybe that people don't want to accept. And I understand why they don't want to accept it. People don't want to make that trade-off of raising a child or having a career. I totally understand why people don't want to do that. But if the reality is that you can't really do it effectively, and today we even see it where two parents are working and it's really hard, right? Even with two parents working, it's almost impossible to do. So the idea of saying, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but like standardized child rearing, to say that's not possible. You can't work and raise a child. That has to be your focus, whether it be the man, which in my case it is, or the woman, or whatever. That's the way it's got to be. What does that look like to you, though? What is standard? Because I can imagine the pushback, aside from the obvious of, well, I don't want to choose. Well, that's just humans, right? We never want to choose. We want to get everything we want. But what would it look like to have standardized child rearing? Because a lot of people would say, are you going to tell me how to raise my child now? Because that feels very anti-American if somebody's going to dictate how I do that. What does that look like in real terms?
Well, that's the problem. People feel, hey, it's my right. You're interfering with my rights to how I want to raise my child. But the truth is that, uh, well, I mean, there are a lot of disturbed parents. There are schizophrenic parents. There are depressed parents. There are sociopathic parents. There are borderline parents, and these parents raise very, very, disturbed children. They can't help it. They're disturbed themselves, and so they raise disturbed children. So we need checks. We need to have child rearing in which people need to qualify to have children. Not anybody can have children. You have to maybe go through a process, an exam, and then the we've studied child rearing now for a long time, and we know what creates good children. Two parents have the best chance of raising healthy children. It doesn't mean that two parents are always the best, because sometimes they're disturbed, but on the average, children need two parents. It seems like the mother is the one that in a two-parent family is more teaches affection and that kind of stuff, and the father discipline, how to deal with your emotions, how to deal with how to deal with ambition and getting ahead. These things have to all they take training and stuff.
Time, yeah. Do you? I want to get into that specific of the idea because it's almost like gun regulation at that point. You should be vetted and verified to be able to own a gun. To stick with that topic, to raise a child, which is super interesting. I'm curious, just for you individually, as you say that, do you? I assume you do, but I'm curious, and you'll be honest. Do you recognize what the danger, the idea of saying not everybody should be able to raise a parent, and somebody, likely the government, I would assume, would say, okay, I allow you to have a child. Do you recognize how that could be interpreted as that's crazy, like that nobody could ever do that, we can never do that? And I understand, I think you're saying it in a much more nuanced way, But is there a part of you that feels like, I hate the fact that I have to say this because I understand why this seems horrific and terrible, and we're entrusting it in another human to tell me if I could raise a child? Do you see that and you say, I still think it's the right way? Or are you like, no, I don't see that at all. I just think that's what we need to do. It's just what it is. There's no danger or risk to it at all.
Yeah, well, it's not working right now. We're raising mass killers. We're raising a lot of this young generation, I guess Gen X or whatever it's called, are they're not they don't want to get jobs. They don't want to get married. They don't want to have sex. What's happening to them? Uh, you know, so I do think we're a dysfunctional culture, and we have dysfunctional child rearing, and a lot of people are raising children that are mistreating their children, uh, emotionally or physically abusing them. Uh, it's becoming more and more prevalent. You know, uh, and so you want to just let it keep going like that?
I mean, this is what makes conversations or topics like this so difficult, because it's so nuanced, right? It's what you're saying is not untrue. There's an issue, right? The mass killings are obviously evident of that. We see that depression rates, suicide rates, all sorts of, and then we're even in some ways talking about extremes there. On average, again, I have a child. I see it. I see how much time kids, us, all of us, are spending in front of screens, not going outside, not forming relationships, not able to communicate, which isn't as dangerous necessarily as a mass killer, but it's still a problem in our society, in our country, and it's a very real thing. But I also understand the risk of trying to fix that by saying, all right, somebody's going to decide this is the one right way to parent, or this is what it takes to be a parent, and somebody's going to get to decide to tell somebody that. And I often end up on the side of, I'm very cynical about humanity. I agree with all the things you're saying, but I also agree with the other side of it, which leaves me in a hopeless place,